this segment I like to call Midnights of Our Past. It's been a while since we've done one. I wanted to bring it back, especially with the fights coming up this weekend with Rampage and Vanderlei having their fourth matchup. I wanted to review their second match, which ended in a crazy knockout with Vanderlei knocking out Rampage with a knee, and Rampage like face planting onto the ropes and hanging off the ropes out cold, like gushing blood. It was an amazing knockout. Like it was one of like the craziest fights I'd ever seen. I felt like this was a good one to bring back Midnights of Our Past. I felt it was a good event. So since we already started talking with that fight, yeah, it was the second matchup between them. It was a war. These guys went back and forth. You know, they had a heated rivalry back then. They kind of still do. They were going for it. Vanderlei was landing, like he was going for that knee. He ended up rocking Rampage with a left hook and a right hand, and he ended up stumbling him a bit. That's when he locked on that tie clinch. He ended up kneeing him. A few of them looked like they grazed, like missed, but that last one that he landed so clean. His nose was broken. Like he hit him got him in the clinch, kneed him, and like Rampage fell like right onto the ropes, like hanging off the ropes. It was one of the most vicious knockouts I've ever seen in my entire life. It was nasty. You know, and when they show the ref cam, I loved how Pride had the referees wearing like a head camera. When they showed the replay of it, you can see like all the blood just pouring out of like Rampage's nose and face. Like it was a vicious knockout. If you've never seen it, you have to go back and watch Vanderlei versus Rampage 2, a Pride 28 High Octane. It was an amazing knockout. Like I said, one of the best, most brutal knockouts of all time. Also, in the co-main event, it was Mirko Cro Cop taking on Josh Barnett. This one ended it was an injury. Barnett ended up tapping out. It looked like he was going for a neck crank, and it looked like maybe that's what caused it. He ended up getting a shoulder, collarbone injury, and he ended up tapping out. It was a quick fight. Mirko, he's kind of a dick. After Barnett tapped out, Mirko ended up hitting him with a few extra punches and then like kicked him off him. Barnett was in the top position in Mirko's guard when it happened. Yeah, it was kind of a dick move by Mirko. Like he knew he was injured and he tapped out and he kind of hit him afterwards. I was kind of a little oblivious and naive to it when I was like younger watching that because I was such a big Mirko fan. But yeah, going back and watching it, like yeah, it was kind of a dick move by Mirko. But yeah, that was a classic matchup, and don't worry, they ended up doing that match again. Also, in the fight before that, ended into the shoulder injury as well. It was like the curse of the shoulder injuries. Dan Henderson versus Kazuhiro Nakamura. Nakamura ended up dislocating his shoulder in that fight, ended up stopping short. But besides that, it's all action from the main event and on from here. It's all crazy action. We got Mark Hunt taking on Dan the Bull Bobish. Mark Hunt landing strikes as always. You know, he ended up kicking Dan the Bull Bobish right to the liver. Bobish ends up like collapsing against the ropes, you know, from the pain. Just, you know, like those body shots just shut you down, you know, especially to the liver. You know, you feel like you can't do anything. Like he just collapsed against the ropes and it was over. It was a great knockout. I love those like body shot knockouts. They're always intense to watch. It was a great performance by Mark Hunt. In the next fight before that, we had Alistair Overeem taking on Hiromitsu Kanehara. Kanehara is a warrior. He fought Mirko in the fight before this, and this guy can take damage. He's tough as nails. He doesn't fear anyone. He takes on like the most dangerous guys in the sport, like, and doesn't even care. He put up a good fight. Overeem was coming back to Pride after his knockout loss to Chuck Liddell in the Grand Prix. So he came back a little different. His physique was a little different, and this was like when you're starting to see the beginnings, you know, slowly like of like the Ubereem. You know, he started bulking up a bit. You can see he was more muscular in this fight compared to what he was in the Liddell fight. This is where you started to see like a different Overeem, a little more aggressive, bigger. He was throwing knees, standing up to the body, to the head. He tried a bunch of flying knees, like he was going for it in this fight. He ended up winning by TKO, his doctor stoppage. Like there was like a cut, you know. Kanehara's eye was swollen too. That was a great performance by Overeem. We also, in the fight before, it was one of the most classic knockouts ever. It was Alexander Emelianenko taking on James Thompson. I'm sure you guys seen this knockout. If not, go online. Alexander Emelianenko versus James Thompson. Yeah, James Thompson, as soon as the opening bell, he charges across the ring like a bull and just starts swinging. And Alexander, just like with his crisp boxing and accurate striking, just lights him up and ends up knocking him out in a few seconds. It was a great knockout, amazing fight. It was one of those classic knockouts. Yeah, James Thompson just going nuts like he usually does in the beginning of the fight, and Alexander Emelianenko just staying calm, cool, collective, just throwing those accurate punches. It was a great knockout. Also, on the fight before that, we had Ricardo Arona making his return after getting a powerbomb knockout by Rampage Jackson. This was his fight back. You know, he wanted to make a statement, get back on the winning track, and he was taking on Sergey Ignatov, which is from Russian top team, and Arona, who was with Brazilian top team. They had a bit of a rival back in the day when Fedor was with Russian top team and Nogueira from Brazilian top team. I always loved how Pride, they always had like gyms, like they would put multiple fighters from gyms against each other as like and build these rivalries with the camps, with the fight camps and gyms. I always thought that was really cool, and it added a little extra something to the fights. Yeah, Ricardo Arona ended up winning by rear naked choke. He ended up holding the choke for like a few seconds longer. The referee was trying to pull him off. He did apologize afterwards, and it just seemed like he was really hungry for a win. Some people, you know, think like Ricardo Arona's a bit of a dick. You know, he is cocky, but yeah, he got the rear naked choke. He held it a little bit longer, but it was a crazy fight. If you remember watching these Pride fights, there's so much action. You can only imagine like the adrenaline with the fighters in these fights as well. They probably got carried away because there was a lot of like, you know, there was so much like action, adrenaline on those Pride events. There's just like the name of the event, High Octane. Like they were just nuts. Like it was so much fun watching these Pride events. I always love going back and watching them. And they still amaze me, even though like I watched them back in the day and I would watch them over and over again. They still amaze me every time. I'm just like, man, Pride was the best, you know. In the fight before that, we had Heath Herring versus Hirotaku Yokoi. Yokoi is a good, well-rounded fighter. Heath Herring, you guys know, the Texas Crazy Horse. He ended up dropping him with some punches, and he was finishing him off. He finished him off with the knees, knocking him out with knees on the ground. Heath Herring was one of the best at throwing those like big knees on the ground. And that was another thing I missed about Pride. The knees on the ground were just so intense. Like, you know, if you got that guy in like that position, or if you sprawled and like, you know, stuffed their takedown, you knew they were vulnerable for knees. You know, if you rocked the guy and dropped him, if you got like a north-south or side control, we knew those knees were coming. Like, Pride was so awesome with that, the knees on the ground rule. It made it so exciting. Like I said, I just love going back and watching these Pride events. Pride 28, High Octane, yeah, it lived up to the name. Lots of finishes. The main event was like one of the most classic, brutal knockouts ever. The Alexander Emelianenko, James Thompson knockout. The Mark Hunt, Dan Bobish, liver kick knockouts. So many good fights. The fight cards were stacked, as you can see. They're all like familiar names, legends in the sport. So much fun. Yeah, I really enjoyed going back and watching this one for this episode. Yeah, guys, definitely go back, watch Pride 28 before the fights this Saturday. I'm really looking forward to the Bellator. Like I said, the co-main event, Rampage versus Vanderlei, the fourth matchup. Mousasi defending his belt against Rory McDonald. Like, it's going to be awesome, guys. Thank you for joining me for this episode. Stay tuned. We're going to be doing a post-fight show after the event. And subscribe to the channel, like the video, and thank you for joining me. Bye.